Morning, everybody. Welcome to JBB TV. Today, I'm going to do a video on a seminar I attended about the Charlotte Mint. That's Charlotte, North Carolina. I went to the Sharonville Convention Center last week, for the Cincinnati Numismatic Association annual coin expo. And a gentleman by the name of Steve Petty gave a talk on the Charlotte Mint and the first gold rush in America. And believe it or not, the first gold rush in America was not California. So it's going to be kind of long. We'll have some gold at the end to show you. But if you want to learn about a little bit of our history and the first gold rush in America, here we go. I've got the seminar. Apologize that it's in paper form, but the electronic version is not mine. But I did ask Mr. Petty for permission to do this. He is the president of the Columbus Coin Club, and he came down to do this talk. So the first gold rush, or the first time gold was discovered, was in North Carolina. If you would have told me before last week that gold had been found in North Carolina, I'd be like, hey, I watch Discovery's Gold Rush. I watch, Bering Sea Gold. Gold is found in Alaska, Montana, Nevada, California, Arizona, and various places like that. Gold's not found in North Carolina. Well, I would be wrong, and many of you would be wrong if you thought the same. Gold was actually first found in 1799 in a little creek called the Little Meadow Creek near Courtesy, North Carolina. It was found by a young boy named Conrad Reed, who decided to skip church to go fishing. And while he was fishing in this little meandering creek in North Carolina, he looked over and he saw a very weird rock, very yellow, very shiny rock. So he went over and picked it up, and it was a 17-pound gold nugget. But he didn't know that. He didn't know what it was. So Conrad brought it home, and, before we talk about what Conrad did, let's talk about where this creek is, okay? Little Meadow Creek is about 25 miles east-northeast of Charlotte. And it's just a little meandering little creek. It's not like a raging river. It's kind of a stillwater creek. So to give you an idea, if you know where Charlotte, North Carolina is, it's in western North Carolina as you head towards the mountains and then on to Tennessee. So in the mid-1700s, the western portion of the southern Piedmont, that's the Piedmont area of North Carolina, was scarcely populated. It was backcountry and this, that, whatever. Governor Dobbs visited that location, and he made a big purchase because he thought it would be good in the Mecklenburg-Carabas counties area for farming. So, there was a lot of Scottish and German people in that area that had settled there. So what the governor found was, the people there were hardworking, they were industrious. They were farmers. They grew corn, wheat, barley, rye, soybeans. And so since it was near Charlotte, Charlotte at the time was just a little dusty village. Well, let's talk about Conrad Reed's discovery. Again, this is in 1799 on a Sunday, skips church, sees this big rock, brings it home to his father, John Reed, and we'll talk about him in a minute. He's got a very interesting history. It was about the size of a modern-day football. So if you can imagine, if you've ever played catch in the backyard or seen a football game, this 17-pound nugget was about the size of a football. So let's talk about the Reed family, all right? John Reed was a German mercenary, and he was working for the British at one point against the Americans in the early Revolutionary War times. But he decided he didn't like the British. He didn't like what they were doing. And he beat feet to the back country of North Carolina and wanted to settle and raise a family here in America. So John Reed, found a tract of land near Meadow Creek in Carabas County, and he put down roots. He was one of the people that raised corn and wheat. He had about 30 acres with him and his wife and his children. So because they didn't know what this thing was, they actually literally used it for a doorstop for several years, for about 3 years. Imagine not knowing what gold is and using it for something as simple as a doorstop to hold the door open. But after that, John Reed, went down to Fayetteville for a trip. And what he did was he went to a local jeweler and he said, hey, to this jeweler, what is this thing? And the jeweler said, well, it's gold, and John Reed said, well, what's its worth? And back in those days, it would have been worth about $3,600. Today, it would be worth about $475,000. But the jeweler is like, yeah, it's worth about $3.50. So John Reed got duped. But remember what I told you about John Reed being a German mercenary, former German mercenary? He's not a gentleman that you want to cross. So John Reed did some more research, and when he found out what that actually was, he went back to the jeweler and got an undisclosed, nobody knows, it was either $1,000 or $3,000 from the jeweler. And you can imagine back in those times and the history of John Reed, the methods he used to extract that $1,000 or $3,000. But what John Reed did was he took that $1,000 or $3,000 and he decided to go back to his farm and whatnot and see what he can build. So he also continues farming, but he creates a mine to mine for gold. And so he starts mining for gold in the western part of North Carolina. This is an actual picture of people mining in a creek in North Carolina, not California. And here's another picture of the people that were mining. So John Reed continued to scour Little Meadow Creek for gold, and they called it the potato patch because they would dig down in little holes and find more and more gold. And so then John Reed decided to seek out Frederick Kaiser, his brother-in-law, and a reverend, and some guy named Mr. Pfeiffer, who was also a wealthy landowner, to really kind of start a partnership because he couldn't do this on his own. So they start mining for gold, okay? And they get new equipment. They get a bunch of slave labor. And before long, there was a slave named Peter who found a 28-pound nugget at the bottom of Meadow Creek. A 28-pound nugget, could you imagine? That's worth, in today's times, anywhere near $750,000, $800,000. That's a lot. That's a big nugget. So North Carolina starts to become the Golden State. And the gold, which is weird because we refer to California as the Golden State, but believe it or not, for a brief instant of time, North Carolina was known as the Golden State. Gold was so prevalent in the old state that from 1804 to 1828, all domestic gold coined in the United States came from North Carolina. That blows my mind. At the peak of the rush, there was about 600 mines operating in and around North Carolina. From 1800 to the Civil War, gold mining ranked as the second industry behind agriculture. So if you think about North Carolina at the time, farming, tobacco, soybeans, wheat, corn, that was a big industry. But right behind it was gold mining. And again, that is so astonishing to me that gold was literally found. I'm in Virginia, in the next state over. It gets me. So the problem now is they started getting all this gold, but back in those days, Western North Carolina, going to Philadelphia, that's like going halfway across the world. It was a very dangerous trek. There was no major roads and highways. you either had to pay a stagecoach like a certain amount a mile, or and you also risked getting robbed along the way. So what they did was um, they a gentleman named Templeton Reed from Midgeville, Georgia. He was a silversmith and an expert machinist. He saw the answer. He decided to buy raw gold, refine it, and stamp coins. Now, Templeton Reed had a very good reputation as a sound, solid businessman with a lot of ethics and integrity. So people trusted him. And then a gentleman named Christopher Beckler, he was a German jeweler and assayer. He opened up the Beckler Heritage Center and Gold Mint site in Rutherford, North Carolina. Now, Christopher Beckler has an interesting history. He was also a machinist, and he actually made firearms. He also was a very stand-up gentleman, good integrity, and people trusted the Becklers. He made rifles and pistols. I mean, he was a very interesting gentleman. And some of the coins that Christopher Beckler made are pictured here, and some of these coins are just incredible. The minting and the crispness. If you ever found a Beckler gold coin or token, it's worth an incredible amount of money because they're so incredibly rare. So Mr. Beckler was well regarded and known for being honest and reasonable. His gold dust fees of 2 to 2.5%. And I misspoke earlier. Beckler was the one that was highly regarded, not Templeton Reed. Mr. Reed was definitely not as well regarded as Mr. Beckler. So what do we got here? The Beckler gold coins, so well received by Congress and commerce in general, that they were used during the Civil War as monetary payments, and some of it even surpassed Union or Confederate currency because people trusted it. But Mr. Beckler died in 1942, and his son August, and then his nephew Christopher took over, and these guys were a little bit shadier, a little bit shrewder, and they didn't have the reputation that their family member and their father and their uncle did. Some of the Beckler rare coins, if you ever came across one, I don't know if you could see some of those prices, but they are, in very bad condition, can be up to $1,500, $7,000. Very rare coins indeed. So let's talk about the Charlotte Mint. All right, the Charlotte Mint, Congress, designates that they need mints down in the South, and this is before World War or the Civil War. So they want 3 branch mints: Delonga, they want New Orleans, and they want Charlotte. Charlotte and Delonga, I always say that wrong. I'm so sorry, guys. They were only designated to make gold coins, whereas the New Orleans Mint would make silver and gold coins. The Charlotte Mint, hoping the camera focuses for you guys so you can actually see that. Congress appropriated about $29,000 for the construction of this thing, and Mr. Strickland, the architect of the day, was used for the construction of the Delonga Mint. The mint had to be a 2-story brick structure having a basement constructed of a good dressed stone. The front T-shaped facility was to be 125 feet across and 33 feet deep. So it's not a very big building at all. So in October of 1835, construction begins and gets underway by the Perry and Light of Raleigh, North Carolina. The 4 acres purchased from William Carson and F.L. Smith for $1,500 full square as what is now the 400 block of West Trade Street. In 1836, construction is fully operational and going, and then in 1837, the mint begins to process and refine gold. The first gold $5 gold piece is struck in 1838, and then the first $2.50 gold piece, and then the dollar gold piece in 1849. So the Charlotte Mint would end up minting $1 gold coins from 1849 to 1859, except for 1854. The $2.50 quarter eagles from 1838 to 1860, except for a couple of years. And then $5 half eagles from 1838 to 1861, except for 1845. And we'll talk about why in 1845 there was no coins minted. Now, they did get sent the dies for a $3 gold coin, but they never ended up making a $3 gold coin, which is weird. So from 1836 to 1860, the Charlotte Mint alternated between striking quarter eagles in the even years and gold dollars in the odd years. And here is some of the coins that were produced by the Charlotte Mint. Now, Mr. Petty had an entire collection of the $2.50 gold eagles with him last week at the coin show. And it was a true honor to see that history all in one place last week. He let us pick them up in the slabs, let us put our loops and see them up close. And it's a very valuable collection. So it was really cool to see that. If you'll notice, the first issue is completely different than what we came to know on the regular gold issues. It's just beautiful craftsmanship, beautiful dies. But that was the Charlotte Mint. So we're almost done, guys. Here's the mintages from all the dates, and if any of you guys want a copy of this, just let me know. I did get an electronic copy on Mr. Lawson's computer from CoinOp, so he might be able to get you guys an electronic copy. We'll just have to ask Mr. Petty about that. So some fun facts about the Charlotte Mint. The Charlotte Mint produced 1,206,538 million gold coins. That is a lot of gold coins with a face value, of amounts of $5.5 million. The U.S. Treasury records show that 89% of the gold that the Charlotte Mint produced came from North Carolina. 9% came from South Carolina. So again, if you would have told me you could find gold in South Carolina, I would have been like, you're crazy. And then 2% was what was brought back from California, from some miners in California and whatnot. Now, the Charlotte Mint, though, there's some interesting things about the Charlotte Mint. After it opened, the biggest thing was in October of 1946, or I'm sorry, there was a fire in 1844 in the building, and there's a rumor that it was college students smoking in the basement. Believe it or not, the Charlotte Mint actually had a fire suppression system back then, which is unheard of with the construction and the tools that they had. So that fire actually could have been put out, but it wasn't. And the rumor that's gone on through the years is it was a bunch of kids smoking in the basement, which is, totally believable, that, something like that could happen. But in 1846, it reopened, and their first $2.50 gold piece struck in 1846 was called the Southern Darling, and it is incredibly rare. And Mr. Petty had an 1846 $2.50 gold piece. I got to hold it in my hand, and just looking at it, you knew that there was just something amazing about this coin. Well, then the Civil War kicks off, and then in 1861, the Confederacy seizes the mint. They continue to operate it for a few months. And then the Confederacy had to convert it to a hospital and a military office to expand their war efforts. Almost done, guys. So then, after the war, the federal troops used it for reconstruction. Then it was used as an assay office. During World War I, it was used as a Red Cross station, and then it became the Charlotte Women's Club. It was scheduled to be demolished for a post office expansion, but private citizens purchased and moved it a few miles east to keep it and preserve the history. I don't know how they moved a building. That would be something to really, know. But in 1936, it opened as the Mint Museum of Art. So, last slides, let's talk about John Reed. In total, John Reed mined about $1 million in gold between 1806 and 1846. Although the gold made the Reed family rich, he never relied on mining for money. He continued his farm operation as his main source of work. 3 years before his death, the United States finally granted him citizenship, and he left behind 9 children, 4 grandchildren, and an estate worth more than $1 million by today's standards. Last slide, guys. So from 1854 to 1895, miners generally expanded underground workings. They built a substantial engine in the mill house and the stone chimney. This is interesting. The Kelly family of Springfield, Ohio, purchased almost exactly the undivided acreage that John Reed had owned. They did not operate the mine profitably, but instead kept the property for nearly 80 years as a southern retreat. In 1966, the site was recognized as a National Historic Landmark, and in 1971, heirs of the Kelly family asked the state about acquiring the site, and the Kellys sold all 760 acres and donated 70 acres with the mine area for establishment of the Reed Gold Mine Historic Site. In April of 77, the site opened to the public. There's artifacts, there's a visitor center, and 400 feet of underground tunnels were restored, and roads and bridges. So that's still there, guys. Yeah, I know that was a little bit longer than we usually go on a video, and you can't have a gold video without having some gold. So let me get you guys some gold. This here is a 1908 no motto $20 gold piece. Wait for the camera to focus. If the camera will focus, there we go. Now, Mr. Lawson will always tell you, buy the coin and not the label. This label is a Rough Rider hoard. All right, here the research I did on this was there was a vault in Europe that a bunch of gold eagles were found, and it was found during the time that Teddy Roosevelt was president. So that's why they called it the Rough Rider hoard. Don't buy a coin because of labels like this. That was totally a marketing thing. The reason I bought it was because I'm doing a display of the Rough Riders, and I figured I'd throw it in there. Also, I have a 1894 S. Come on, camera. There we go. 1894 S, $20 gold piece, AU 50. Some of you will know that this coin is a little bit on the rare side. It's a good coin to have. And hopefully you got some of that. So yeah, guys, that's it. That's it for today. Apologize for the long seminar, but I wanted to share that with you. I know a couple of people in my last video said, yeah, we'd really love to see that. 2 last things that I got to end the video on is thanking Mr. Lawson for let me help out with the coin show and helping CoinOp. Love CoinOp. So if you're not a member of CoinOp, please check it out. And lastly, just want to send out my condolences and my heart and my thoughts and my prayers to the Greg Arbuckle family. Greg Arbuckle was at the coin show last week. He's a good friend. Been seeing him for the last 3 years. He's a very good friend to CoinOp. And when he got home, he passed away in his sleep. So Greg Arbuckle was a great guy, and he's going to be surely missed. Thanks, guys, so much, and we'll get you another video here soon. Appreciate you stopping in.